So this is my little sister, and I am going to tell her about my website for World Foundations. And she hasn't taken that class yet, so I also get to explain to her a little bit about what she's going to learn in our class. So, Merritt, I took World Foundations from Brother Meeker, and we were first introduced to the class, and he said we were going to get adopted into a third world country. So on the first week of school, we were given a little slip of paper, and we went with a friend, and our reaction to that country was filmed, and we got to read our little thing saying what country we got. And I got Uganda, which I had actually heard of before because I have some family members who have served missions there. So I was kind of excited. Even though I had heard of the country before, I was excited to learn even more and kind of put those mission stories together with these stories of things that are going on in the country right now, politically and socially. So something we did a lot during this semester was these concept maps, which you can see as I scroll down on the computer, which is down here. So these concept maps were a way that we organized information that we learned throughout this semester. So we would watch a video on a certain topic, and then we would make a concept map. And we called them C-maps, and mostly those were the assignments we did during class. And our first ones, we learned a lot about the world and the way the world is connected, and how advances in technology have, in a way, flattened the world. So the world being flat kind of means it's like a more level playing field, and information can be passed really easily from country to country, from person to person, as we've gotten more internet access and technology given to us. We also learned a lot about gender roles, and that was something that I thought was interesting because even on the other side of the world, where all of these things are happening like in Uganda, they kind of have the same struggles as I do in my own life. We learned about the Human Development Index for a little bit, and we had an assignment where we had to find different pictures that depicted poverty in our country, which were a little bit scary but kind of sad at the same time, but it was also very eye-opening to see those things and the struggles that people around the world were having, especially in my country. So some of the videos that we made, we would watch, a movie in class or a film or YouTube videos or something, and we were supposed to do our own reactions to it. So one I wanted to explain a little bit more about was called Time for School. And what they did was they profiled, I think it was like 6 or 8 different kids around the world and their experiences with education as they kind of went through their own lives. Most of them were about, I think, like 12 or 15, kind of around that younger age. So kind of a time when like their eyes were starting to be open to the world, and their brains are obviously still developing. They're learning to make decisions and make different choices. Some of the people that really stood out to me in that video were the ones who were making sacrifices to go to school, because that wasn't necessarily something that I had to do when I was growing up. School was just a part of life, and that's where you go during the day, and it wasn't really a struggle to get there. It wasn't a struggle to pay for school. It was just kind of how I grew up as a little kid in the United States. We learned a lot about different technologies that are being developed for these third world countries in order for them to progress. One thing I learned a lot about was the projects that are done in those third world countries. Like, an outside group will come in to, maybe build a well or build a school or something. And what happens is sometimes those programs run out of funding, so they kind of fail. And I feel like some of these third world countries lose a lot of trust in the, American people or in the United States, because we kind of come in and oftentimes those problems just kind of fail and they're kind of forgotten about. So we learned, ways to make these projects succeed. And we did an exercise in class where we were able to kind of think really on a really wide scale, kind of like dream big, I guess, and come up with our own solution to certain problems, and we were given information and we were able to kind of think of our own ways to solve these problems. One thing that was kind of uncomfortable for me that we learned about in class was the FGM day, and all the diagrams were a little bit uncomfortable, and some of the terms we used were a little bit uncomfortable, but I learned a lot about just different cultures and the way that just because something is normal for us or something isn't normal for us doesn't mean other countries feel the same. We learned a lot about ethnocentrism, which is basically an American viewpoint being pushed upon other countries. So what FGM is, it's a female version of circumcision, and it was really awkward to learn about, and it was just uncomfortable for me, but I was trying to be open-minded and trying to be okay, what's the good here? And we made a concept map about it, which was kind of good because I was able to kind of just think about it more clearly and kind of from a cultural standpoint. But I learned that as we are helping these other countries develop, and as we're helping them change and find clean water sources or different technologies for growing crops, we need to keep their values in mind. And obviously that was something that we don't participate in and something that we didn't really see a huge value in, but for them it was a beautification process. It was a part of growing up. It was a part of becoming a woman. It was declaring your independence, and in some cultures it was more seen as a safety issue and a birth control, a population controlling mechanism. But for me, when I first heard about it, I was pretty uncomfortable with it, but being able to learn a little bit more about it kind of helped me to open my eyes a little bit more. We also learned about some new technologies that are coming out for clean water systems, and the way that those, the new systems and the new technologies need to be really innovative, and the things, they need to answer questions that have never needed to be answered before, and they need to present opportunities to people that have never been presented before. So, for example, the one that we learned the most about was this new type of water bottle that's coming out. Well, it is out, and there's a lot of water filtration systems that will filter out bacteria and diseases, but a lot of times the holes in the filter are too large, and a lot of those bacteria and diseases can still pass through the holes, so it's still in the water. So this water bottle that was developed has really, really tiny holes, so even the smallest little particles of diseases can't even get through. So what this does is it brings the water source to the people, so they don't have to walk so far to get their water, or they don't have to build a well system or a purification system with them. They have this portable clean water system. So mostly what I've learned throughout this class is, first, you have to keep a very open mind, and you have to remember that these are people's lives, and this isn't just a checklist for us. We learned about the 8 Millennium Goals, which the United Nations developed, and learning more about those goals, you kind of see exactly why it's important and exactly how it's going to change people's lives. So you do have to keep an open mind, and you have to know that these people have been living this way for a really long time, and in order for changes to be made, it has to be beneficial all around, and you have to be really patient. I also learned that you kind of have to think bigger. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and it can seem a little bit hopeless to change the world and to, get clean water sources or healthcare to all of these people. But you have to think pretty big, and you have to, have that open mind in this same sense that, nothing is impossible, and that goals can be reached. And there's a lot of scary things going on in the world, but there's also a lot of hope for the future at the same time. Do you have any questions?
No.
About the class or anything? Okay, we're done.